The sun was dipping low over Raleigh, North Carolina, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns of Crestwood Estates. It was the kind of neighborhood where every mailbox matched, every hedge was trimmed to a razor's edge, and the HOA's rulebook was thicker than a phone directory. I'm Mike Reynolds, 52 years old, a retired mechanic with a bum knee and a temper I try to keep on a leash. My daughter, Lily, is 16, sharp as a tack and tougher than most, even if she's been stuck in a wheelchair since a car crash stole her legs. And her mom, 6 years ago. We moved here for a fresh start, but what happened that evening on our driveway changed everything. I was tightening a bolt on Lily's ramp, our latest violation, according to the HOA, when I heard her scream. Not a playful yelp, but a raw, jagged cry that hit me like a punch to the gut. I dropped my wrench and spun around. There she was, my girl, sprawled on the pavement beside her overturned wheelchair, her hands clutching her side. Her therapy dog, Max, was barking like hell, hackles up. Standing over her, red-faced and shaking with rage, was Karen Whitaker, the HOA president who'd made our lives a nightmare since we moved in. In her right hand was a .38 revolver, the barrel still smoking from a shot that had just pinged off my mailbox, leaving a dent the size of a quarter. "You're not HOA material, you little cripple," Karen spat, her voice shrill enough to crack glass. Her blonde bob was plastered with sweat, and her eyes, Jesus, they were wild, like she'd been waiting her whole life to pull that trigger. Lily sobbed, trying to drag herself upright, but her arms buckled. I ran to her, my boots pounding the asphalt, my heart slamming so hard I thought it had burst. "Lily, I'm here," I yelled, sliding to my knees beside her. She was pale, her breath hitching, but thank God, no blood, just scrapes from the fall. Max growled at Karen, but I waved him back. Last thing I needed was her shooting him too. "Back off, Mike," Karen snapped, swinging the gun toward me. "This is my neighborhood, and I'm done with your trash dragging it down." Trash? She meant Lily's ramp, our beat-up '09 Civic, the cigar I smoked on my porch once a month. 6 months we'd been here, and Karen had hounded us from day one. Fined us $200 for unauthorized landscaping when Lily's wheelchair left tracks in the mud. Slapped us with $500 when Max's paw print showed up on her precious lawn. And last week, she'd stood right here, screaming that our ramp ruined curb appeal. Like my kid's mobility was a damn eyesore. I held up my hands, keeping my voice steady. Karen put the gun down. She's just a kid. But she wasn't listening. She was pacing now, muttering about standards and property values. Her fingers still twitching near the trigger. Neighbors peeked from behind their curtains. Old Man Jenkins, the Wilsons, even that nosy couple with the yappy poodle. But nobody stepped out. Crestwood wasn't that kind of place. You kept your head down, paid your fines, and prayed Karen didn't notice you. I scooped Lily into my arms, her wheelchair a twisted heap beside us. She clung to me, whispering, "Dad, I'm scared." That's when something snapped inside me. Not just anger, but something deeper, colder. I'd seen bullies before, back in '98, when I was a Marine and watched a CO push my squad into the dirt for his own ego. I'd sworn I'd never let that happen again. Not to anyone I loved. But here was Karen, gun in hand, treating my daughter like garbage. I set Lily gently against the garage door and stood, staring Karen down. "You're done," I said low and hard. "You hear me?" She laughed, a sharp, ugly sound, and fired another shot, this one kicking up dirt a foot from my boots. "Try me, Mike. You're out of your league." Then she turned and stormed back to her McMansion across the street, her heels clicking like a countdown. I knelt by Lily, checking her over, my hands shaking. Not just from fear, but from a rage I hadn't felt in years. Max nuzzled her, whining, and I pulled them both close, promising her she was safe, even if I wasn't sure I believed it. Now, let me back up a bit because you need to know how we got here. 6 months ago, I sold everything we had left in Durham to afford this place. Crestwood promised wide sidewalks, good schools, a community where Lily could roll out her chair and feel normal. I'd spent years drowning in medical bills, fixing wheelchairs instead of cars, trying to be the dad Lily deserved after the accident. Her mom, Sarah, was gone because of that night. A drunk driver, a rainy road, and me behind the wheel, though the cops swore it wasn't my fault. Still, guilt's a heavy thing, and it followed us here. Karen started small notes about our cluttered driveway, snide comments at HOA meetings. Then it got worse. She'd stand on her porch, binoculars in hand, watching us like a hawk. When I called her out last month, told her to back off in front of the whole board, her face went purple. "You'll regret that," she'd hissed. Guess this was her idea of payback. But here's the thing. You ever dealt with a Karen like this? Someone who thinks they own your life, your home, your kid's right to exist? I'm betting you've got a story. Some HOA nutjob, a neighbor from hell. Drop it in the comments, man. Tell me what you'd do if you were standing in my shoes right now, because I'm dying to know how you'd handle a lunatic waving a gun at your family. I got Lily inside, settled her on the couch with Max curled up beside her. She was quiet, too quiet, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I'm sorry, Dad," she whispered, like any of this was her fault. I hugged her tight, told her she was the strongest person I knew, but inside, I was burning. Karen wasn't just a nuisance anymore. She was a threat. I stepped onto the porch, the air thick with summer heat, and looked across the street. Her house glowed under those tacky floodlights she'd fined us for not having. I could still hear her voice, that smug, not HOA material echoing in my head. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing. Karen had picked the wrong fight. My eyes drifted to my truck, parked in the driveway, the faded Marine Corps sticker catching the streetlight. Back in '98, I'd learned what happens when you let a bully run wild. Good people get hurt, and the guilt never leaves you. Not this time, I muttered to myself. I've dealt with your kind before, Karen, and I'm not losing again. Inside, my hands were steady now, my mind already turning. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. A week after Karen Whitaker fired a bullet past my mailbox and sent my daughter, Lily, crashing out of her wheelchair, I was still seeing red. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice, not HOA material, and saw Lily's terrified face on that pavement. I'm Mike Reynolds, 52, a guy who's fixed more engines than tempers, but Crestwood Estates was testing me like nothing else. This wasn't just about a crazy neighbor anymore. Karen was a one-woman dictatorship, and I was starting to realize she'd been running this neighborhood like her personal fiefdom long before we showed up. The mini-hook hit me like a slap at the next HOA meeting, packed into the community center's stuffy conference room. Karen strutted in, her blonde bob bouncing like she was auditioning for a reality show. She clutched a gavel. Yeah, a gavel, and slammed it down, silencing the room. "New rule," she announced, her voice dripping with smug satisfaction. "All wheelchair ramps must be painted to match community aesthetics. Non-compliance? A $2,000 fine, effective immediately." She paused, her eyes locking onto mine across the crowd. Lily's ramp, our lifeline, was in her crosshairs. My fists clenched under the table, nails digging into my palms. Karen wasn't just harassing us. She was daring me to fight back. I leaned back in my folding chair, the plastic creaking under my weight, and took in the room. Neighbors shifted uncomfortably. Old Man Jenkins fiddled with his hearing aid. The Wilsons whispered to each other, but nobody spoke up. That's how Karen operated. She'd been terrorizing Crestwood for years, and I was late to the party. Flashbacks hit me hard, stories I'd heard from folks too scared to cross her. 2 years ago, she had a single mom's car towed for parking 2 inches over a line. $400 to get it back, plus a $150 HOA fine. Last summer, she shut down a kids' lemonade stand for unlicensed commerce, then fined the parents $300 for cluttering the sidewalk. And don't get me started on the time she called the cops on a Navy vet for flying his flag an inch too high above her precious community standards. Karen didn't just enforce rules. She weaponized them. Her warning shot at Lily wasn't even her first time pulling that .38. I learned from Gloria, a feisty retiree who lived 2 houses down, that Karen had fired at a stray cat last year, claiming it violated pet quotas. The cat lived, but the message was clear. Cross Karen, and you'd regret it. Gloria whispered this over coffee in her kitchen, her hands shaking as she showed me a $600 fine for excessive garden gnomes. "She's untouchable, Mike," Gloria said. "She's got dirt on half the board." I wasn't so sure about untouchable, but I knew I needed answers. So I went digging. I tracked down Tom, the ex-HOA treasurer who'd quit after clashing with Karen. He lived on the edge of Crestwood, his yard a middle finger to the HOA, unkempt grass, a rusted Chevy up on blocks. Tom was pushing 70, chain-smoking Camels, and smelled like regret. "Karen's not just petty," he rasped, blowing smoke out his screen door. "She's crooked. Those fines? Half of them go straight to her bank account." He slid me a crumpled folder old HOA ledgers showing miscellaneous fees, funneled to a shell company called KW Properties. Karen Whitaker, huh? I flipped through the pages, my jaw tightening. She wasn't just bullying us. She was robbing the whole damn neighborhood. Tom leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Watch your back, Mike. She ran her own husband out of town in 2015. Nobody's seen him since." His eyes darted to the street, like Karen might be lurking. I didn't buy the whole missing husband bit. Sounded like gossip, but the ledgers were real. Karen was playing dirty, and I was starting to see the game. I thanked Tom, stuffed the folder in my jacket, and headed home, my mind racing. If Karen was this deep in the mud, there had to be a way to pull her out. Back at the house, Lily was struggling. She'd barely left her room since the incident, and it killed me to see her like that. She was always the tough one, cracking jokes even after a dozen surgeries, but now, she was quiet, her sketchbooks untouched. I caught her one night repainting her wheelchair. Bright blue, her favorite color, because Karen's goons had left a note saying it clashed with the neighborhood palette. "I just want them to leave us alone, Dad," she said, her voice small. I knelt beside her, my heart twisting. "They will, kid. I promise." But as I helped her sand down the paint, I felt like I was failing her all over again. That guilt wasn't new. 6 years ago, I was driving when that drunk driver T-boned us. Sarah died on impact. Lily lost her legs. The cops said I couldn't have stopped it. But try telling that to the guy who sees his wife's face every night before he sleeps. Moving to Crestwood was supposed to be our reset, but Karen was turning it into another nightmare. And it wasn't just Lily she was breaking. It was me, too, stirring up memories I'd buried deep. Back in '98, I was a Marine watching a bully CO push my squad into the ground for his own ego. I'd punched him out, nearly got court-martialed, and swore I'd never let another tyrant win. Karen's smug face was bringing that old rage back, and I wasn't sure how long I could keep it caged. The final straw came that Friday. I found a cease and desist letter taped to our door, Karen's loopy signature at the bottom. Due to repeated violations, it read, "Your therapy animal must be kenneled off-site within 48 hours. Non-compliance will result in a $1,000 fine and legal action." Max, Lily's dog, was her lifeline. Calmed her panic attacks, kept her steady. Karen knew that, and she was twisting the knife. I crumpled the letter, my blood boiling. I stormed across the street, ready to pound on her door, but stopped cold. There she was on her lawn, waving that damn .38 at another neighbor. This time Jenkins, who dared to mow his grass too early. She fired a warning shot into the air, screaming about noise ordinances. Jenkins scurried inside, and I backed off, my pulse hammering. Karen wasn't just unhinged. She was dangerous. I retreated to my garage, the letter still in my fist. This wasn't a fight I could win with yelling or fists. Not yet. Karen had the HOA, her gun, and half the neighborhood too scared to blink. But I wasn't helpless. I opened a dusty lockbox under my workbench, the one I hadn't touched in years. Inside was my old Marine Corps knife, its edge still sharp enough to cut through bullshit. I turned it over in my hands, the weight familiar, grounding. "This isn't over, Karen?" I muttered, sliding it back into the box. Not yet. 2 weeks after Karen Whitaker's bullet dented my mailbox and her venom sent my daughter, Lily, spiraling, I was done playing nice. I'm Mike Reynolds, 52, a guy who'd rather fix a carburetor than a feud, but Crestwood Estates wasn't giving me a choice. Karen wasn't just the HOA's resident tyrant. She was a thief, a bully, and a gun-toting nutcase who thought she could scare us out of town. She'd underestimated me. I'd been a Marine once, and we don't fold. If Karen wanted a war, I was ready to bring one my way. The spark hit at 3 a.m., when most of Crestwood was snoring under their HOA-approved blackout curtains. I crept across the street, a duffel bag slung over my shoulder, grinning like a kid pulling a prank. Inside the bag, 50 plastic flamingos, hot pink and tacky as hell, each with a tiny sign taped to its beak. HOA approved. I planted them across Karen's pristine lawn, their spindly legs stabbing the grass like a neon middle finger. By dawn, her yard looked like a Vegas gift shop had exploded. I sipped coffee on my porch, watching the show unfold. Karen burst out her door, still in her silk robe, and let out a scream that could have shattered windows. "Vandals!" she shrieked, waving her .38 like a conductor's baton, firing a wild shot into the air. Neighbors peeked out, some stifling laughs. I tipped my mug to her chaos, feeling alive for the first time in weeks. Game on, Karen. That prank was just the start. Karen thought she could bury us with fines and threats. $2,000 for Lily's ramp, a cease and desist for Max's paw prints, rumors she spread that our Civic was lowering property values. But I'd learned a thing or two from Tom, the chain-smoking ex-HOA treasurer who'd handed me her dirty ledgers. Karen wasn't just mean. She was sloppy. Those fines she loved slapping on folks? They weren't going to the HOA's landscaping fund. They were padding her personal account, KW Properties. I wasn't ready to blow the whistle yet, but I could make her sweat. First, I needed to hit her where it hurt, her precious rules. I roped in Tom's grandson, Ethan, a 19-year-old tech whiz who'd flunked out of NC State, but could hack a server faster than I could change a tire. Over pizza in my garage, Ethan cracked the HOA's email system. Amateur stuff. Karen hadn't updated the password since 2012. We sent a fake newsletter to every resident, titled Crestwood Clarifications. It reminded everyone that Karen's own bylaws banned visible weapons on community property. Yep, her .38 was a violation. We quoted her rulebook verbatim, page 47, section 3.2. Please report non-compliance to the board. It read. With a winking emoji, Ethan insisted on adding. By noon, Karen was fielding calls from nosy neighbors, her voice audible across the street as she screamed, "It's not a weapon. It's self-defense." Next, I went old school. I printed 200 flyers. Anonymous, of course, listing Karen's pettiest fines. $300 for a kid's lemonade stand, $600 for Gloria's gnomes, $150 for a flagpole infraction. At the bottom, in bold, ask where your fines are really going. I stuffed them in mailboxes at midnight, my heart pounding like I was back in the Corps running recon. By morning, Crestwood was buzzing. Jenkins cornered me at the gas station, waving a flyer. "This true, Mike? She's stealing?" I shrugged, playing dumb. Sounds like someone's asking questions. The seed was planted. The neighborhood was stirring, and I fanned the flames. I called a secret meeting at Gloria's house, her living room crammed with a dozen fed-up residents. Gloria, 68 and fierce as a bobcat, poured bourbon and spilled her own Karen story. Last year, Karen had blackmailed her with a $1,000 fine for unapproved paint, unless she voted Karen's way on the board. Others chimed in, towed cars, banned Christmas lights, even a kid's bike confiscated for clutter. I laid out the plan. No fists, no yelling, just pressure. "We play smart," I said, my voice steady. "She's got cracks in her armor. Let's pry 'em open." But inside, I was wrestling my temper. Back in '98, I decked a CO for bullying my squad, nearly lost my career. Rage felt good, but it could burn you down. I wasn't letting that happen, not with Lily counting on me. Lily was my anchor, but Karen was hitting her hard. That cease and desist about Max had her on edge, and the rumors Karen spread, that Lily's disability was faked to dodge HOA fees, cut deeper. I found her in the garage one night, polishing her wheelchair's wheels, tears streaking her face. "They think I'm a liar, Dad," she whispered. I dropped my tools and pulled her close, my chest tight. "They're wrong, kid. You're tougher than all of them." I told her about the flamingos, hoping for a laugh, but she just nodded, her eyes distant. Then she said something that lit a fire in me. "Dad, you taught me to fight. Don't stop now." I hugged her tighter, promising I wouldn't. Karen wasn't slowing down either. She smelled rebellion and hit back hard, hiring a slick lawyer named Vince Russo who looked like he'd stepped out of a used car ad. Russo slapped me with a $10,000 lien for defamation, claiming my flyers were lies. The notice came certified mail, all official with HOA letterhead, demanding payment in 30 days or they'd seize our house. Karen's signature was scrawled at the bottom, her loopy K practically gloating. She wasn't just fighting dirty, she was trying to bury us. I stared at the letter, my hands shaking, not with fear but with focus. She'd overplayed her hand. I kept moving. I posted more flyers, this time quoting Karen's own emails. Snippets Ethan had dug up where she called neighbors trash and peasants. I slipped them under windshields at the grocery store, far from Crestwood's cameras. Gloria rallied her book club, spreading word that Karen's fines were funding her new Lexus, not the community pool. Jenkins even got bold, leaving a KW Properties business card on Karen's porch with "thief" scribbled on it. The neighborhood was waking up, and Karen was rattled. I saw her pacing her driveway, snapping at her gardener, her .38 tucked in her waistband like she expected a riot. That night, I found Lily sketching again, her first drawing in weeks. A cartoon of Karen with devil horns, tripping over flamingos. I laughed, the sound foreign after weeks of grinding my teeth. "You're back," I said, ruffling her hair. She smirked. Had to draw something stupid to feel normal. I sat with her, fixing a squeak in her chair, and told her we were close. "Karen's slipping, kid. We just gotta keep pushing." But as I tightened the bolts, my mind flashed to 98. My CO's sneer, my fist connecting, the fallout. I'd won that fight, but it cost me. This time, I had to be smarter. Then I got a break. Ethan called, his voice buzzing. "Yo, Mike, that lawyer? Vince Russo? Total fraud. No license. Just a conman Karen found online. He'd hacked Russo's LinkedIn, fake credentials, shady reviews." I grinned, grabbing Tom's folder. If Russo was a fake, Karen's lien was toothless. I wrote an anonymous note, short and sweet. "I know your secrets. Step down or they're public." I slid it under her door at 2 a.m., my pulse steady. Karen was about to learn what it felt like to be cornered. 3 weeks after I turned Karen Whitaker's lawn into a flamingo graveyard, Crestwood Estates was a powder keg, and I was holding the match. I'm Mike Reynolds, 52, a retired mechanic who'd rather wrench an engine than a neck, but Karen had pushed me too far. Firing a bullet at my daughter, Lily, fining us into the ground, threatening her therapy dog, Max. She thought she could bully us out of this HOA-controlled suburb, but I'd flipped the script. Anonymous flyers, hacked emails, and a neighborhood ready to snap. Karen's empire was crumbling. Tonight, it was time to finish it. The showdown kicked off like a scene from a Western, minus the tumbleweeds. Karen had called an emergency HOA meeting at the community center, her last-ditch effort to crush us. The room was packed. Every chair filled, neighbors standing shoulder to shoulder, the air thick with sweat and anticipation. Karen stood at the podium, her blonde bob sprayed stiff, clutching a forged document that declared Lily and me delinquent tenants facing eviction. "The Reynolds family has violated our standards," she sneered, waving the paper like a royal decree. "They're out, tonight." Her eyes gleamed, daring anyone to challenge her. Then I walked in, Lily rolling beside me, Max trotting at her side. I held a folder labeled Karen's Lies in black Sharpie. Karen's smirk faltered, just for a second. She knew she was cornered. I'd planned this moment for days, ever since Ethan, my tech whiz ally, confirmed her lawyer, Vince Russo, was a fraud. No license, just a conman she'd hired to slap us with a fake $10,000 lien. Tom's ledgers, Gloria's testimony, Ethan's email hacks. It was all in my folder, a ticking bomb. I stepped to the center of the room, Lily's wheelchair clicking softly beside me. "You want to talk violations, Karen?" I said, my voice low but carrying to every corner. "Let's start with yours." The crowd leaned in, phones already recording. Karen gripped the podium, her knuckles white, but I wasn't slowing down. I opened the folder and held up Tom's ledgers, bank records showing $50,000 in fines funneled to KW Properties, Karen's shell company. "This look like landscaping funds to you?" I asked, tossing copies into the crowd. Neighbors gasped, passing them around like contraband. Jenkins muttered, "Son of a..." As Gloria nodded fiercely. I wasn't done. I pulled out a USB drive, Ethan's handiwork, and plugged it into the projector. Up flashed an email from Karen to Russo. "Make the lien stick, or you're cut off." The room erupted shouts, curses, a few cheers. Karen's face went purple, her mouth flapping like a fish out of water. "Lies!" she screamed. "Fabricated." Then I played my ace. I hit play on my phone, connected to the room speakers. Gloria's voice filled the air, recorded on a hidden camera Ethan had rigged. "Pay the $1,000 fine, Gloria, or I'll evict you. Your choice." Karen's own words, cold and smug. The crowd roared, neighbors on their feet. Gloria stood, bourbon in hand, and yelled, "That's her, all right." Karen lunged for the podium's mic, but I stepped in front, shielding Lily. "You're done, Karen," I said, loud enough for the cheap seats. "Step down or this goes to the cops." That's when she snapped. Karen's hand dove into her purse, and before I could blink, her .38 was out, trembling in her grip. "I built this neighborhood," she shrieked, her voice cracking like glass. The crowd froze, phones still up, catching every second. Lily grabbed my arm, her breath hitching, but I didn't flinch. I'd seen worse than Karen in '98. A CO who'd cost my squadmate's life with his ego. I wasn't letting her take this from us. She swung the gun toward me, then Lily, her eyes wild. "You think you can ruin me?" she spat. Then crack. She fired a warning shot into the ceiling, plaster dusting down like snow. The room screamed, people ducking under tables, but I moved on instinct. Marine training kicked in, muscle memory from a lifetime ago. I lunged, closing the gap in 2 steps, and grabbed her wrist, twisting hard. The gun clattered to the floor, skidding toward Tom, who scooped it up with a smoker's cough and a grin. "Nice try, lady," he rasped. I pinned Karen's arm, not hard enough to break it, just enough to make her squeal. "You're through," I growled. Lily rolled forward, Max growling at her side, and said, "You don't scare us anymore." The crowd cheered, phones still rolling, and for the first time, I saw fear in Karen's eyes. Cops were already outside. Gloria had tipped them off, expecting trouble. They stormed in, cuffs ready, as neighbors shouted Karen's crimes. Embezzlement, blackmail, reckless endangerment. She thrashed as they dragged her out, screaming about her neighborhood, her bob flopping like a bad wig. I held Lily's hand, her grip steady despite the chaos. "You okay, kid?" I whispered. She nodded, a small smile breaking through. "We got her, Dad." As the cops hauled Karen away, I let myself breathe. This was for Lily, for Sarah, for every neighbor she'd crushed. Back in '98, I'd watched a bully CO push my squad mate to breaking. His death still haunted me, a weight I'd carried to Crestwood. Karen wasn't just a pain. She was every unchecked tyrant I'd failed to stop. Standing there with Lily safe and Karen in cuffs, I felt that weight lift, just a little. I'd kept my promise to protect my girl, but something nagged at me, a loose thread I couldn't place. Then came the twist. One of the cops, a grizzled guy named Daniels, pulled me aside as the crowd dispersed. "You got lucky, Reynolds," he said, glancing at Karen's patrol car. "She's been unhinged for years. Her husband didn't just leave in 2015, he fled. Filed a restraining order after she pulled that gun on him." My stomach turned. Karen wasn't just a crook. She was a powder keg. Her HOA power a twisted way to control what she'd lost. Daniels handed me his card. "Watch your back. She's got friends." I nodded, slipping it into my pocket, but my eyes were on Lily, rolling toward Gloria, who was passing out high fives. We stepped outside, the night air cool against my skin. Crestwood felt different, lighter, like it could finally breathe. The HOA board, shaken by the evidence, voted on the spot to dissolve Karen's rules. Lily's ramp was safe, painted bright purple now, a defiant streak against the beige conformity. Neighbors slapped my back, calling me a hero, but I just wanted a beer and my kid's smile. We rolled home, Max trotting beside us, the stars sharp above. I glanced at Karen's house, dark now, her floodlights off. Victory tasted good, but that cop's warning stuck with me. As I tucked Lily in, I noticed a strange car idling across the street. Black sedan, tinted windows, engine low. I locked eyes with the driver, a shadow in the dark, and they peeled out, tires chirping. My hand twitched toward the lockbox in my garage, where my marine knife waited. Karen was gone, but something told me this wasn't over. I kissed Lily's forehead, promising her we were safe, even as my gut said otherwise. A month after I stared down Karen Whitaker's .38 and watched her get cuffed in front of a cheering Crestwood Estates, life felt different. Like the air was cleaner, the lawns less suffocating. I'm Mike Reynolds, 52, a guy who'd spent years fixing cars and lately fixing fights, all to keep my daughter, Lily, safe. Karen's reign was over, her embezzlement exposed, her gun confiscated, her HOA empire ashes. But victory's a funny thing. It feels good until you spot a shadow in the rearview, reminding you the road's never quite clear. The morning started bright, with Crestwood buzzing for its first Karen-free block party. I'd fired up my old grill in the driveway, flipping burgers while Lily rolled around, her wheelchair now decked out with custom shocks the neighbors had crowdfunded. Gloria, our bourbon-slinging retiree ally, was running the new HOA. Her first act was torching Karen's 200-page rulebook in a bonfire that smelled like freedom. Tom, the chain-smoking ex-treasurer, tossed in a few pages himself, coughing through a grin. Kids ran wild, painting Lily's ramp with handprints. Red, blue, purple. A middle finger to Karen's aesthetic standards. Max, Lily's therapy dog, chased a frisbee, his tail wagging like he knew we'd won. I leaned against my truck, a cold beer in hand, and let myself smile. This was what I'd fought for. But something caught my eye. A black sedan, same as the one I'd seen the night Karen went down, parked across the street. Tinted windows, engine idling low. My gut tightened, the old Marine instinct kicking in. I'd spent 98 learning to spot trouble. Back when a bully CO's ego cost my squadmate's life, and that car screamed it. I set my beer down, keeping my eyes on the driver's shadow. Lily laughed nearby, tossing a burger bun to Max, and I forced myself to stay calm. Not today, I thought. Not in front of her. I crossed the street, casual but steady, my boots loud on the asphalt. The sedan's engine revved, and I caught a glimpse of the driver. Male, 40s, slick hair like he sold bad loans for a living. "Hey!" I called, raising a hand. He locked eyes with me, his face blank, then peeled out, tires squealing. Neighbors turned, burgers forgotten, but I waved them off with a grin. "Just a joyrider," I lied. Inside, my mind was racing. Karen was gone, but that cop's warning, "She's got friends," wasn't just noise. I scanned the crowd, half expecting her ghost to pop up with a gavel and a fine. Shaking it off, I joined Lily at the ramp, where she was showing Jenkins how to paint a star. "Nice work, kid," I said, ruffling her hair. She smirked, her old spark back. "Better than Karen's lawn, right?" I laughed, picturing those flamingos I'd planted weeks ago, the prank that started our rebellion. The neighborhood was healing. Gloria's new HOA/dues, Jenkins flew his Navy flag high, and the Wilsons even parked their RV in their driveway, no fine in sight. Lily was back in school, rolling to class with her head up, and she joined an adaptive basketball league, her first practice next week. I'd started a woodworking side hustle, carving tables in the garage, the sawdust smell pulling me out of the haze of medical bills and guilt. We were okay, better than okay. Then the news hit, like a cherry on this Sunday of a day. Gloria rushed over, phone in hand, her eyes wide. "Mike, you gotta see this." She showed me a local news site. Crestwood HOA president faces 5 years for embezzlement. Endangerment. Karen's plea deal had tanked. Her fake lawyer, Vince Russo, flipped on her, spilling everything to dodge his own charges. She'd stolen $50,000 from Crestwood, blackmailed half the board, and fired that .38 one too many times. The article had a mugshot, Karen's bob limp, her glare unhinged. Tom cackled, raising his beer. "Bet she's already running the prison's inmate HOA." The crowd roared, and I clinked my bottle against his. "To no more Karens," I said, the words tasting sweeter than the beer. But the real closure came later, after the party wound down. I drove to the cemetery, something I hadn't done in months. Sarah's grave was quiet, the grass soft under my knees. I traced her name on the stone, my voice low. "Lily's gonna be okay, babe. I kept my promise." 6 years ago, that crash took her from us. Left Lily in a chair, left me drowning in what-ifs. I'd blamed myself, even when the cops swore it wasn't my fault. Karen's attack on Lily brought it all back. Every failure, every bully I hadn't stopped, from 98 to now. But standing up to her, watching her fall, it wasn't just about Crestwood. It was about proving I could protect what mattered. I left a daisy on the stone, Sarah's favorite, and walked away lighter, like I'd finally let go. Back home, I found Lily sketching. A new one, Karen's mugshot with cartoon handcuffs. "Think she'll like it?" she teased. I grinned, taping it to the fridge. "Frame it for her cell." We laughed, the sound filling the house, Max thumping his tail. Crestwood wasn't perfect. Nosy neighbors, still too many rules, but it was ours again. I kept my lockbox closed, my marine knife untouched. Didn't need it anymore, or so I thought. That night, as fireworks lit up the sky, Gloria's idea to cap the party, I stepped outside to watch. Lily was with friends, giggling, her wheelchair glinting under the sparks. I leaned against my truck, the same one with that faded marine sticker, and let the moment sink in. We'd won. Karen was gone, Lily was strong, and I was rebuilding one table one day at a time. But that sedan still nagged at me. I'd seen it twice now, and my gut said it wasn't random. So here's where you come in, fellas. What a ride, right? Watching Karen crash and burn. Man, that felt good. If you loved seeing her get what she deserved, smash that like button and share this with your buddies. Drop a comment. Tell me how you'd celebrate taking down your own HOA tyrant, or what you do with that sedan creeping around. And don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell so you catch the next story. Who knows? That driver might be back, and I'm not betting on him bringing flowers. Let's keep this going. Together, we're unstoppable.